Today, we're diving into the mind of one of the most puzzling figures in all of literature, the Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa. Now, he wasn't just one writer, he was literally a crowd, a man who contained multitudes. And his story? Well, it challenges one of the most basic ideas we have, the idea that we have a single, stable self.
Let's start with just one number, 80. This isn't just some random figure. No, it's the key. It's the key to unlocking one of the strangest, most profound literary projects anyone has ever attempted. It represents dozens and dozens of lives, all lived by one man. So how on earth is that even possible?
I want you to really think about that for a second. How many people live inside you? You know, there's the you that's at work, the you that's with your family, the you that's all alone with your thoughts late at night. Pessoa took this idea, this internal crowd, to an absolutely incredible extreme, and he forces us to ask this very question.
All right, so our story actually begins not with a person, but with an object, a simple, plain wooden trunk, a chest that held an entire universe of secrets, locked away for decades. So, when Pessoa died back in 1935, he was a relatively unknown poet. He left behind this trunk, which just sat there, unopened, for 47 years. Can you imagine the moment when scholars finally lifted the lid? They weren't just looking at the unpublished work of one guy. No, they found a whole literary world, populated by over 80 different authors, each with their own unique voice, their own style, their own story to tell.
So who were all these people? To understand that, we have to move from the trunk itself and go right into the mind of the man who created them. And you got to understand, this wasn't just some gimmick. This was the very core of his entire existence. Okay, so here's a really crucial distinction we have to make. We're all familiar with pseudonyms, right? Think of Mark Twain or George Orwell. It's just a fake name, a pen name. But Pessoa didn't use pseudonyms. He created heteronyms. And the difference? Well, it's profound. A heteronym isn't just a name. It's an entirely separate person.
And this is where it gets absolutely wild. His heteronyms had birth dates, they had physical descriptions, complex personal histories. They wrote in completely different styles. I mean, one was this super traditional classicist poet, another was a fiery futurist. They had totally opposite views on life, on art, on politics. And get this, here's the craziest part. They would write letters to each other, arguing and debating their philosophies, all of it flowing through the hand of Fernando Pessoa. Now, the philosophical heart of this incredible project, you can find it in his masterwork. It's this sprawling collection of fragments that was put together after he died, and it's called the Book of Disquiet. This quote, man, it gets right to the heart of what he was experiencing. He didn't hear a single melody inside himself. He heard a full orchestra with all its beautiful, clashing, and complicated sounds. He felt like he was less a single musician and more like the concert hall itself, where this whole performance was taking place. So this leads to the central idea in the Book of Disquiet, this concept of the illusory self. Pessoa basically believed that the feeling you have of being one consistent you from one moment to the next, it's just a convenient story. He argued that the reality is we're just a fluid collection of different selves that are constantly taking the stage depending on the moment. And this is so important. He didn't see this as a problem or some kind of mental illness. For him, this wasn't a bug in the system, it was the system. This fragmentation was the authentic human experience. Trying to force all those different instruments to play one single, simple note, that was the real mistake.
So, if you accept that the self is an illusion, what does that mean for how you live your life? It's a pretty complex philosophy, but it builds into something surprisingly practical. For Pessoa, it meant one thing: freedom.
I mean, think of all the pressure we feel to find ourselves or to be authentic. It can be exhausting. But what if all that pressure is based on a myth? What if there is no single true self to find in the first place? What if you're already, and always have been, a collection of many authentic selves?
Pessoa kind of suggests a path. First, you have to recognize that the story of you, your personality, your history, all your anxieties, it's a kind of performance, a drama. Second, you have to understand that at the very center of all this activity is a quiet space, a kind of calm awareness. And finally, once you see the drama for what it is, you can stop taking it all so seriously. You can become the audience instead of just being the actor. So let's bring this all home. Why should this strange philosophy of a Portuguese poet from a century ago matter to us today in our busy, identity-obsessed world? The key takeaway is really this. There is immense relief in just accepting that you contain multitudes. It's okay to feel ambitious one day and totally lazy the next. It's okay to be cynical and also hopeful. Instead of fighting all these contradictions, Pessoa invites us to see them as the rich, complex music of our own inner orchestra.
In the end, Pessoa leaves us with this powerful, provocative idea that maybe the goal isn't to build a solid, unchanging identity. Perhaps the goal is to become comfortable being that quiet, empty space in which all the different, wonderful, and contradictory versions of you can spin and live and have their say.